Hi, I'm Luke Ryan for JoBlo.com and welcome to Movie Endings Explained, where we'll be taking a look at some of the more ambiguous and discussed movie endings that have left audiences debating their true meaning long after the credits have rolled. This time on Movie Endings Explained, we're going to be looking at the 2001 Cameron Crowe film Vanilla Sky, starring Tom Cruise. Fresh off big success working together on Jerry Maguire, the director and actor team were keen to make another film, though something wildly different from Jerry Maguire. It was Tom Cruise who saw the 1997 Spanish film Open Your Eyes and eagerly showed it to Crowe. They decided to remake it, although Cameron Crowe likes to use the term remix, and insists that Vanilla Sky is a companion piece, likening the two films to songs, with Open Your Eyes being the classical music original and Vanilla Sky its rock companion piece. The story follows David Ames, the rich owner of a publishing firm in New York, who inherited the company and lives out a bachelor lifestyle. After a fairly standard introduction to David, we suddenly cut to him telling his life story to court psychologist Dr. McCabe, played by Kurt Russell. David is being charged for murder, and is wearing a prosthetic mask to cover his face. We retrace the steps of his recent past to find him falling in love with Sophia, played by Penelope Cruz, after he's introduced to her by his author friend Brian Shelby. Cruz also played Sophia in the original film Open Your Eyes. David's newfound love with Sophia doesn't sit too well with his possessive former partner Julie, who traps him in the passenger seat of her car and drives it off a bridge. Julie dies and David is left severely disfigured, practically ruining his life. For a man so proud of his own image, he can't bear to be seen by anyone, and even has the mirrors removed from his home. Eventually, he works up the courage to face Sophia again. They go out with Brian, and David gets blind drunk, and ends up left alone to wallow in the streets. When he wakes up the following morning, Sophia has returned to him, and they become a couple again. David undergoes plastic surgery and has his face surgically repaired as if the accident had never happened. For a while things seem perfect, but he begins to have nightmares that his face has become disfigured again, and he meets a strange man in a bar who tells David he can control everyone if he wanted to. One day, Julie returns, insisting to David that she is Sophia. He soon finds mementos and photographs of Sophia replaced with Julie's face. Unable to tell what's real or fiction, and who is Sophia or Julie, David smothers and kills Julie. Or was it Sophia? After David's session with Dr. McCabe ends, he is taken to a company called LE, or Life Extension. Here he learns that he has in fact been cryogenically frozen, a service he opted into, his mind set inside a lucid dream after he killed himself. From the point that he woke up after the drunken night out is the Life Extension lucid dream kicking in and replacing anything real that happened afterwards. The first real clue that everything after that is a lucid dream is really in the Vanilla Sky itself, above David and Sophia as they walk away down the street, a detail that David pointed out to Sophia earlier in the film on a Monet painting.
That is the real thing. His paintbrush painted the Vanilla Sky with canvas. My mother's.
But the lucid dream was not going to Life Extension's plan, as David's subconscious started losing grip on the reality of the unreality his mind was initially tricked into believing was real. Elements of movies he'd watched and iconography that had stuck with him throughout his entire life informed the lucid dream as it began to morph into something different. And so at the conclusion of the film, David is given a choice by the mysterious man he met earlier at the bar, Ventura, or tech support, to either be reinserted into the correct lucid dream or to wake up. David has been frozen for 150 years and is given the option to take a literal leap of faith off the top of a building to jolt himself back into reality. David's fear of heights is the key trigger to help him on his way to break free from the lucid dream. After he realizes that most of his romance with Sophia was imaginary and merely the beginning stages of the planned perfect reimagining of his life, David decides to take the leap. The film doesn't offer us anything post-lucid dream beyond David's eye and the confirmation that he did manage to wake up in reality. If you choose to believe that he did, that is. And here's the main interest in Vanilla Sky's ending. While it's a mind-bending film where both the audience and David are questioning what's real more and more as it progresses, by the end, the story is laid out in a fairly straightforward manner. There are some clues along the way, such as the previously mentioned and titular Vanilla Sky, but also how perfectly things go for David right after he wakes up in the street. Previously there was no hope to reconstruct his face, and yet suddenly it's doable and he's fixed perfectly. Yet, Cameron Crowe welcomes interpretation to proceedings and at one point stated there are 5 ways to view the ending of the film, without going into specifics. One is, of course, at face value, believing everything you are shown from the beginning of the film to the very end. Another is that age-old theory. It was all a dream. I mean, the title of the movie is Vanilla Sky, which is a device in the film to explain why David was dreaming. Could it be that the whole film was a dream too? Maybe. As both a nod to the original film but also a recurring theme throughout Vanilla Sky, the words "open your eyes" are spoken to David multiple times. David's car also has a registration date of the 30th of February 2001, a day that doesn't exist. However, Cameron Crowe has explained that that was an accident, but all the same, a happy one. Serendipitous fuel to the fire. But I don't personally find this answer very satisfying, or more importantly, all that interesting. It was all a dream just feels phoned in as an idea. Another theory is that Vanilla Sky is actually Brian Shelby's book. While Brian is David's best friend, he also judges him at times, and at one point tells David he will never know the pain of being the guy who goes home alone. The borderline aggressively vain David gets completely stripped down throughout Vanilla Sky, both physically and emotionally, and learns lessons that Brian would no doubt want David to face. In a way, it would be Brian putting David through a revenge. If this were the case, Brian would also be living vicariously through David in writing this story, for as much as he chastises David at times, he too would like to be the guy who doesn't go home alone. I like the outside of the box thinking of the film being Brian's book, but it also feels like it's trying too hard as a theory. You could also look at Vanilla Sky as the portrait of a clinically insane man. Up to a point, the events of the story could be real, with David under psychiatric evaluation from Dr. McCabe, but when it gets to the point where no more time is left, and David begins to bang on the glass in the interrogation room, his mind slips into complete delusional fantasy. Yet another angle is viewing the story as David's hallucinatory dream following the car crash, stuck in a coma, and building a continuation of his life inside his mind, one that rapidly descends into nonsense. That being said, the tantalizing idea of Vanilla Sky being taken more at face value, ending on the concept of David awakening in 2151 to see a completely different world, or not, is still the most intriguing to me, though I love the idea of viewing a film like this in different ways, shaped by your own experiences and ideals, and even faith. In 2015, Vanilla Sky was released on Blu-ray, including an alternate ending. Though it doesn't offer any earth-shattering differences, Dr. McCabe keeps pleading to David to not jump off the building, and as David is about to hit the ground, he shouts that he wants to wake up. The only real significant difference as far as the very ending of the film is concerned is perhaps the final line of dialogue, which is slightly different. Take a listen, followed by the final theatrical version.
Relax, David. Open your eyes.
I'm not quite sure what to make of the differences there in the lines of dialogue, whether it's a different voice, whether that means anything. I'll leave that to you to read into if you feel like it. Cameron Crowe has said a lot of things about Vanilla Sky, never shy to talk about his work, but the most important and key quote about the ending of the film from him is this: "As deep as you want to go with it, my desire was for the movie to meet you there." What did you think of the ending of Vanilla Sky? Do you take the story at face value, or do you dive deeper into the possibilities of its finale? Let us know down below, and thanks for watching.
A storm is coming, Frank says. A storm that will swallow the children, and I will deliver them from the kingdom of Bane. I will deliver the children back to their doorsteps. I'll send the monsters back to the underground. I'll send them back to a place where no one else can see them. Except for me. Because I am Donnie Darko.
Friends, it's that time of year. The weather is getting colder, the nights are getting spookier, and my watch list is getting weirder.
You're weird.
Sorry.
Among the classics for Halloween movie nights is Richard Kelly's directorial debut that both shocked attendees of Sundance in 2001, as well as risen to the ranks of the coveted title Cult Classic in the more than 20 years since it was made. It's a movie that resonates with teenagers on a level that few movies have in the past couple of decades, and on its own it stands as a crowd-pleasing adventure that is sure to intrigue you as much as it confuses you. I'm talking, of course, about the time-traveling, water-bending, and deliciously disturbing story of Donnie Darko.
Donnie Darko.
Donnie Darko.
Donnie Darko?
Mr. Darko.
Donnie.
Donnie Darko?
Donnie Darko.
Donnie Darko.
Our Donnie.
Donnie Darko.
Donnie Darko. You know, when I was 13 or 14, my English teacher put this movie on for us in class at the end of the day, and I don't remember exactly why he did that, but I do remember that the movie really made an impression on me. I borrowed a VHS from a friend that night and watched it again, and most of my intrigue came from the incredibly complex plot, but mixed with the feeling of a John Hughes movie gone full emo. It was exactly what 14-year-old me was into.
But I'm over all that. I'm painting and stuff.
And in the years since, I've seen this movie at least once a year, and many times more than that, and every time I've tried to describe this movie to someone who hasn't seen it, I find myself romanticizing the movie's tone and angsty mood over the deeper themes and overall plot. And that's because, as we all know, Donnie Darko is just one of those movies that you kinda have to see.
You know, I love that movie, the way they shot it. It's so, like futuristic, you know?
So, today's episode is going to be a very dark trip down memory lane as we reawaken my inner teenager and figure out once and for all, what's Donnie Darko really about? Donnie Darko is the story of a teenage boy who's visited in what he thinks are hallucinations by a strange man in a bunny suit who tells him that the world is coming to an end and it's up to Donnie to stop it. Along the way, we're in for an unraveling mystery of time travel, tangent universes, and even a definitive deconstruction on the sex lives of Smurfs. What?
Smurfs are asexual. They don't even have reproductive organs under those little white pants.
Now, this movie could be described in a number of ways with varying degrees of truth to each. Some people would call it a science fiction movie, and some would say it's a borderline horror, and I've even heard it described as a coming-of-age film with supernatural elements. And to be fair, those are all pretty accurate.
There are other things that need to be taken into account here, like the whole spectrum of human emotion.
But as is tradition on this show, we will not be going on an Easter egg hunt, but instead, we're gonna watch the movie and investigate the background and behind the scenes of it, and then I'm gonna formulate my own theory on what this movie is really about. Oh, and for the super fans out there, don't worry. I'll be watching the Richard Kelly director's cut of the movie so we can get as granular as we want.
I could spend my whole life debating it over and over again, weighing the pros and cons, and in the end, I still wouldn't have any proof.
So, Donnie, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, is a troubled but mostly average suburban teenager. The only thing is, he's got a severe sleepwalking problem, often taking him miles away from his house in the middle of the night. And one night, Donnie is visited by Frank, a mysterious man in a Halloween costume whose face is hidden under a sinister-looking bunny mask.
Why are you wearing that stupid man suit?
Frank tells Donnie that the world is coming to an end, and we're immediately left wondering what the f is going on.
There's nothing broken in my brain.
I know.
The film is about life. It's about the complexity of life. It's about a boy becoming a man. It's about a man confronting himself. It's about the death of the Reagan era. Yeah, it's about a whole lot of things. But part of what's essential for me is it's not about any one thing, right? It's about a broad spectrum of the human experience. And it can't just be reduced to a single explanation. And that's what I'm most proud of, is that you can continually get lost in it and try to navigate your way through the story again and again and again, and hopefully see something new every single time.
It's established in the movie that Donnie suffers from a few mental health afflictions that call into question the validity of any of the supernatural activity that he's experiencing. And of course, this is by design. Richard Kelly talked on the director's cut commentary about how he unintentionally wrote Donnie as some sort of reflection of himself.
Maybe you should be the one in therapy, then mom and dad can pay someone $200 an hour to listen to all your thoughts, so we don't have to.
This, of course, isn't anything new. I mean, we all have an inherent case of main character syndrome when it comes to writing what we know, and while it can be a bit heavy-handed on the tragic leading man who always seems like the smartest guy in the room, the character is still very well balanced with enough realistic flaws and development that it really works for this kind of story.
Damn it, Donnie, why do you gotta get so smart on us?
When a mysterious jet engine falls from the sky and lands on Donnie's house, it crashes through the roof and lands directly over Donnie's bed. A bed that Donnie would have been sleeping in, and by extension, died in if he hadn't been sleepwalking with his new friend that night. This isn't explained directly in the film, but what happens is that Donnie was supposed to be killed by that engine, but by not dying in the accident, he caused a split in the timeline, which created a tangent reality.
The idea of a fourth dimension, I don't think that any human brain could ever comprehend what the fourth dimension really is, and that's where you get into the God machine kind of thing. With the director's cut, what I'm putting out there is that if these people of Middlesex succeed in sending that jet engine back and helping this kid and his superpowers send this jet engine back, that they've proved something, that they've contacted something. They've contacted a divine higher power or something. And
oh, I don't like that.
Yeah.
Keep that one to yourself.
Now, none of the town's residents seem consciously aware of this, but the movie has an eerie tone that sort of implies that deep down, they all know that something is not right, and it has to do with Donnie. And this new reality is where our film takes place.
If it fell from the plane, then what happened to the plane?
Donnie's day-to-day life leading up to the end of the world is mostly a series of disturbing events that serve as building blocks for the surprising yet inevitable conclusion. Donnie doesn't know how, but he's gotta save the world after all. On his mission list is flooding his high school by slashing a water main with an axe and sticking the weapon in the head of the school's mascot, and the only explanation that we get for any of this, at first, is the words, "They made me do it," written by Donnie on the sidewalk. Now, let's stick a pin in that for later.
What else? What else? Principal Cole, I'll show you what else.
Donnie mostly goes about his days like a normal kid. He has his friends, a few enemies, including Seth Rogen, and even a new girlfriend named Gretchen, who seems to be just as f***ed up as Donnie.
I guess some people are just born with tragedy in their blood.
Now, one thing to know about the character of Donnie Darko is that in the context of this story, he's a good kid. He's played as mature for his age, but Gyllenhaal did a wonderful job of portraying that underlying teenage innocence and ignorance that shines through in every scene. Donnie's parents, while having their own individual flaws, love him and genuinely show him warmth and support no matter what. It's sort of understood that he's misunderstood, if that makes any sense.
How's it feel to have a wacko for a son?
It feels wonderful.
He acts out and has a very rebellious streak, but he's not really hurting anyone or doing anything other than just not complying with school activities and etiquette.
He asked me to forcibly insert the lifeline exercise card into my anus.
When approaching the role, it's sort of hard to figure out because there's so many things that he gets hit with. I think that Donnie is what he comes in contact with. In the simplest terms, like in most abstract terms, I could say it's a journey. Like it's just a journey about discovering who you are. And the irony of the whole thing is that, like, hopefully by the end, it's not only Donnie who realizes it, but the audience in a way. And they have to go back and they have to watch it again, and they have to watch it again. But it's just like this ridiculous, fantastic, completely absurd yet completely naturalistic and realistic mixture of humor, like sadness, comedy, and madness, like rolled up in this ball of this like crazy story journey.
And if you're cute and you're horny, then you're probably happy that you don't know who you are or why you're even alive.
The people of Middlesex, the fictional suburban town that Donnie lives in, are all unique characters that this movie could follow on their own and still make it captivating. Among them is Donnie's antagonistic and conservative teacher, Miss Farmer, and his much cooler teacher, Miss Pomeroy, played by Drew Barrymore, who also produced the film. And we also have Donnie's sister, played by Maggie Gyllenhaal, his two parents, and who could forget the town's favorite resident, Jim Cunningham.
Pay close attention. You could miss something.
Hello. My name is Jim Cunningham.
One night, Donnie and Gretchen are out at a midnight movie when Gretchen falls asleep in her seat, and Donnie is visited once again by Frank. This time, Frank reveals himself to be a handsome young teen with a horrible wound on his eye. We aren't sure who he is and how he connects to Donnie just yet, but he asks Donnie to go to Jim Cunningham's house and burn it to the ground. Another mission that isn't clear to us just yet, but remember, we're coming back. See, when Donnie floods his school, class gets canceled, which is how he meets Gretchen when he saves her from bullies walking home. When he burns down the house, it gets exposed that the town hero, Jim Cunningham, is actually a depraved child predator with a secret room dedicated to his crimes. This exposes him and leads to his arrest. Meanwhile, Donnie is also experiencing his perceived hallucinations again, only this time he sees a floating stream of liquid coming from the chests of his family, which all seem to lead them on their own paths. This seems like imagery meant to tell us that their actions are predetermined. But how? Well, we're not there yet.
If we were able to see our destinies manifest themselves visually, then we would be given a choice.
Donnie's path leads him to his father's closet where he finds a loaded handgun. Now, while all of this is going on, there's all sorts of little subplots to follow as well. One of which is the discovery Donnie makes of an old book on time travel written by the town's local shut-in, Roberta Sparrow, aka Lady Death. See, Lady Death wrote a book on time travel, and when Donnie discovers it, he realizes that that's the key to preventing the world from ending. He needs to go back, but he doesn't know how or when to go to. So in order to get the real reveal of this movie, we need to cover how it all goes down in the final act. Brace yourselves.
Storm is coming. You must hurry.
It's Halloween, 1988. And Donnie's parents are out of town. His mom is on a last-minute flight to take his younger sister Sam to a dance contest. His father isn't home, and he and his older sister decide to throw a party to celebrate his sister getting into college. Tonight is the night that will change everything. Tonight is the final night on Donnie's doomsday calendar. Tonight, the world ends.
Danny said that the world was coming to an end.
Do you think the world is coming to an end?
While at the party, Donnie feels drawn to Lady Death's home to visit her cellar. This idea was planted in his head when Miss Pomeroy told him that the words cellar door were the prettiest combination of words in the English language. Upon arriving with Gretchen and his friends, his bullies attack them and attempt to kill Donnie, and in the struggle, Gretchen is knocked down in the road and run over by a speeding car. Oof. Do you remember the first time you saw this shit? Ugh, it messed me up. So, it's revealed that Frank is actually Elizabeth's boyfriend, and when Donnie sees him, he pulls out his father's gun and shoots Frank in the eye, killing him. It's a scene that feels like it simultaneously ties everything together while also raising even more questions. Donnie takes Gretchen's body back and carries out his final heroic deed when he turns back time to the night of the plane crash and goes home to lay in bed and greet his ultimate demise. Donnie even laughs as he awaits his death, knowing that the final solution is to erase himself from the people he loves' lives. And this undoes everything that occurred in the Tangent universe and sets the main timeline back on course.
The Deus Ex Machina, the God Machine, that's what saved the rabbits.
The idea of an insurance trap, that this accident is going to ensure that mankind, the fate of all mankind, will be saved. And even Catherine Ross, her character with the placebo scene that was important to restore to the film, she's not going to give Superman Ritalin. You know, he might fly into a wall. You don't do that. You don't give Superman drugs.
So what happened? I mean, what the hell is this movie about? Well, again, in the director's commentary, which I highly recommend, Kelly explains that what's going on between the lines is that when Donnie didn't die in the plane crash, he created a new timeline, which somehow causes the world to end in the future. And apparently, the idea is that in the future, they have technology that allows them to communicate with other timelines, and these unknown heroes of the future need to track Donnie down in his Tangent universe and subconsciously guide him to destroying the Tangent universe he created by not dying. And of course, this would explain why it feels like each person Donnie interacts with is unknowingly guiding him to the ultimate conclusion. Drew Barrymore gives him a subliminal clue to go to the cellar. Miss Farmer is the one who had to cancel and ask Donnie's mom to go on the dance trip, which is the plane that the engine comes from. And all of Donnie's arson, vandalism, and destruction of property caused the events of the story to set into motion, which all led to this finale. So basically, it's a movie about a kid who's visited by reverse ghosts from the future that need his help to destroy his own universe to save the main universe. Sounds like some kind of superhero.
It's like some sort of superhero or something.
What makes you think I'm not?
Donnie also has water superpowers, which is a bit clearer in the director's cut, but you never see him do anything magical or mystical, and this of course was an artistic and possibly budgetary choice made by Richard Kelly, but I think it actually makes the movie better. The whole movie is meant to be ambiguous, and I wholeheartedly believe that that's why so many different types of people love this movie. Now, what do I think Kelly was really trying to say with this story? Well, after taking all of this into account and relying on my own interpretation of what this movie is, it plays to me as a movie that's exploring the complex inner feelings of a young kid who wants to simultaneously blend in and stand out. An elaborate story that serves as Kelly's future self going back in time to tell his past self that all the pain, all the loneliness, all the darkness, it'll all lead to a brighter and happier future. In a lot of ways, it just feels like Kelly is trying to say that all the bullshit you go through as a teen is what makes you who you are today. And hopefully, that's a good thing.
What the fuck, ass?
Here's a question. What is movie magic? Is it the modern age of digital effects, with giant green screen warehouses being turned into sweeping otherworldly landscapes? Is it hiding Colin Farrell's perfectly symmetrical features under blobs of rubber blubber? Well, yes.
Magic.
But today, we're here to discuss a different type of movie magic, a more analog and old-world approach to making miracles that was brought together by the modern master of realistic movie making, Christopher Nolan. In what I would consider to be one of his best films to date, and maybe even the most obvious parallel between A Life in the Spotlight versus the obsession that fuels it.
All that we know is he uses a trapdoor. Ah, brilliant. What is going on under that stage?
That's right, folks. Today we're going to take a trip down memory lane and finally figure out once and for all, what is The Prestige really about? 2006's The Prestige follows two magicians who start off as friends and collaborators and even partners, only to be sunken deeper and deeper into their shared obsession to become the best magician of their time. Of course, this creates a conflict that will run the spectrum of casually spying on each other to eventually both being consumed by the secrets they keep to achieve their goals. It's poetic, but also right in line with Nolan's tendencies to write a movie that reflects the filmmaker's own feelings. And that's what we're here to explore today.
If you want Angier's secrets, you go dig him up and ask him yourself.
Firstly, it's a well-known speculation that all of Nolan's movies are in some way about the price you pay to pursue your dreams. Inception was about a man who spent so long literally chasing dreams, and it cost him his family. The Dark Knight trilogy tells an epic 3-movie story about choosing to sacrifice your own happiness in order to serve the work. And how could we forget Interstellar, which... Nah, I'm not gonna get into it because I literally cannot talk about this movie without crying. But the point is, Nolan knows how to write things that he knows, while dressing the story up in practical effects and pageantry. He's a tried and true filmmaker. But as a result, it leaves me thinking that The Prestige is really no different. I believe this movie wants the audience to witness the dangers of obsession and the pursuit of perfection. Because if there's one thing that Nolan is saying with these incredibly thoughtful stories with smooth and masterful direction, it's that chasing the big life comes at a price. And that price is usually relationships.
Well, it was challenging to conceive at script stage of, okay, well, how do you create the sense of magic without just showing magic tricks? Because magic tricks through the camera can be really meaningless because of camera tricks and CG and all the rest, which the audience is very aware of that possibility. And so we decided to use the narrative itself, to use the story to create the sense of magic, to create the tricks, if you will. And then the only magic we see in the film is really done, for real, and the actors learned how to do small, productions and vanishes, prestidigitation, these little tricks you do with your hands, because we just wanted to be able to show very casually as a throwaway thing in the film, just the skill that they would have, just to give these guys credibility as magicians. And, that's a fun thing to just see a little throwaway vanish, a little throwaway production.
The film features multiple moments of dialogue with Michael Caine's character, Cutter, who acts as kind of a wingman to Hugh Jackman, a magician's assistant, if you will.
He's a magician, ask him.
In these scenes, Cutter outlines a three-part structure of a magic trick, which sounds very similar to the structure of another form of media that Nolan is all too familiar with.
Every magic trick consists of 3 parts, or acts.
The pledge. The magician shows something ordinary, like a deck of cards or a dove. The first act of the movie usually introduces us to our characters and their own versions of ordinary life. The turn. The magician makes the ordinary thing do something extraordinary, like disappear. The prestige. The magician returns the ordinary thing to its ordinary state, which is the hardest part of any magic trick. In this movie, the prestige is never really earned. It's an ugly, vicious truth that twists the story into paranoia and pure anxiety. It shows that in order to pull off the prestige, you have to be willing to do whatever it takes to keep the illusion intact.
Because making something disappear isn't enough. You have to bring it back.
The scenes not only draw parallels between stage magic and filmmaking, it also blatantly tells us everything we need to know about the true meaning of the movie. Films, filmmaking, storytelling, magic tricks. At the end of the day, it's all an act. A lie. A show for the layman.
Total devotion to his art. Utter self-sacrifice.
But Nolan takes it beyond that. He shows what can come from living these carefully manufactured constructs that we present as our lives and life's work.
You're a magician, not a wizard. You've got to get your hands dirty if you're going to achieve the impossible.
Borden and Angier are both hiding from the pain of the real world by taking solace in their obsessions. Kind of like, if I can just achieve this, then I'll be happy.
I need something impossible.
But that very obsession that they see as their own salvation becomes nothing more than a well-built coffin made of secrets. They both go on without anyone ever truly knowing who they were, and the only thing the world would remember is the show, the act.
Well, hasn't good come of your obsessions?
At first, but I followed them too long.
While we all love a little sleight of hand and showmanship, what a modern audience really wants to know when we're watching something spectacular is how. And to go a step further, Nolan poses the question of why.
It's a movie which really does involve immersion completely as an audience member. You have to stick with it. You have to pay attention to what is going on.
Because all the clues are there.
And they're there, but what I love about it is that in the same way that when I've read the script first, I wanted to read the script straight away again.
Yes.
Because what you realise by the end of it is not only you're watching a movie about magicians and their rivalries, and it's not so much about magic tricks. It's not really about showing that, except for this one particular one, which causes the rivalry between the two of us. But that the entire movie itself is a magic trick.
Yes. As Michael Caine so eloquently put it, it's a movie you don't want to take a piss during, right? Because you need to be watching you don't want to miss one beat of it.
He's not talking about the actors in the movie.
No.
As an audience.
You don't want to leave to take a piss. That's better.
Exploring the raw ambition of these two magicians is where the film gets its best thrills. Whether it's the sabotage of each other's acts in order to maintain some sort of edge, or it's the incredible appearance from David Bowie as Nikolai Tesla, who builds Angier a real-life teleportation machine, the movie really wants to show us these incredible performances that the audience hails as miracles. But they're really nothing more than a couple of madmen with something to prove to each other and maybe themselves. And the fucked up thing is that they'll sacrifice anything or anyone to get it.
They flatter you with all those chains, Alfred. Don't they know you can't escape without your little rubber ball?
Now, you may not know this, but before I was doing this gig, I was a professional magician. I spent some years working behind the scenes with many of the world's best illusionists and have seen how lonely it can be being the engineer of a show that nobody is supposed to understand. And to answer Nolan's question of why, I guess it's the same reason that he makes movies, or that I spend 4 hours a day shuffling cards. Because we can't let it go. We need the obsession to give us purpose and meaning and something for the world to remember us by. So, if you ask me, The Prestige isn't just a movie about filmmaking, it's a movie made to show us the darkness behind movie magic so we can understand that the bright lights and silver screens are just one part of it all. And the rest of it, well, it's simply not for the faint of heart.
Hey, what am I holding?
Your watch.
To say that Christopher Nolan is an interesting filmmaker would be an understatement that would undersell the depth of his films. Nolan has made dark crime thrillers, science fiction, noir, and even recently added historical drama to his catalog with Dunkirk and Oppenheimer. And among his most praised films is Nolan's take on the heist subgenre in 2010's Inception. Inception is a science fiction action flick with a star-studded cast of characters who all add their own particular flavor to this ensemble. You kinda have to imagine Ocean's 11, only instead of hitting the Bellagio, they're breaking in and inputting rather than extracting their loot from their marked subconscious. Basically, they want to see if they can plant an idea in someone's brain. And if that sounds interesting, what if I told you that the film is also packed with hidden meanings, messages, and some outlandish theories that make each viewing of this movie a guaranteed conversation starter? Now, as is the case with Nolan's films, and many films in general, the themes woven into this story have been endlessly speculated on by fans of the director for years, and today, we're gonna look at some interesting takes on this mind-bending masterclass in movie magic, and figure out once and for all, what's Inception really about?
So you want me to let someone else follow you into your fantasy?
Christopher Nolan probably doesn't need any sort of introduction here, but just for context, Christopher Nolan is the Academy Award nominated director behind such films as the Dark Knight trilogy, Dunkirk, and The Prestige being among his most acclaimed. He's one of those directors that has become a household name and a brand unto himself, in that even casual movie fans will line up for, quote, the new Christopher Nolan movie. Nolan's films are fairly recognizable and typically have an aesthetic that makes each film seem somehow connected to the next one. In fact, one theory about Nolan is that 3 of his films are in fact interconnected. Now, I want to make sure that I keep this video about the film and not investigate each and every Easter egg to validate already existing theories, but this one includes the subject of today's episode, so I guess we'll start here.
Once an idea has taken hold in the brain, it's almost impossible to eradicate.
There's a theory floating around social media that Inception, Interstellar, and Tenet are all connected by way of being in the same universe across different time periods. The theory's original post has since been removed, but the points have propelled the theory well into the zeitgeist ever since. The fan who posted this theory believed that Cobb's 2 young children are actually Neil and Barbara from Tenet, and the time bomb from Tenet is actually what causes the apocalypse in Interstellar. Now, while I love a good theory and there are some similarities to each of these films, I think that these films being connected is a little bit of a stretch. But what's interesting is what that theory says about Nolan as a filmmaker.
There's such a mystique around you that I think sometimes people feel intimidated
And then when you actually get in proximity to you, and particularly shooting a film, it's arguably the least judgmental, most nurturing environment I could have ever imagined being in. He's kind of like the Wizard of Oz, except I think he dresses cooler.
See, these movies feel connected because Nolan's productions often function in the same way with many of the same creative collaborators. Nolan famously writes some of his biggest films with his younger brother Jonathan, as well as casting members of his own family in some of his movies. And the filmmaker also includes similar aspects in each film, which boost the feeling that they exist in the same universe. For example, most of Nolan's movies don't follow a typical story structure. This kind of storytelling automatically creates a vibe that you can mentally associate with any of his films. Also, he usually tries to root his stories in concepts that are at least based in reality, real science or real math or real vigilantism. He also shoots on film, which is increasingly rare, and he often will use the same style of titles in the edit. Needless to say, even if these movies don't really exist in the same universe, they're connected in other ways that are equally as interesting.
I think there was an initial state of confusion, certainly, with everyone that read the screenplay. Chris Nolan is a visionary filmmaker. He's somebody that's, that comes up with very complex narratives and is able to pull them off in a grand fashion. And he's got a great track record of doing that, but a lot of understanding what he wanted to accomplish cinematically meant sitting down with him in person. And I spent 2.5 months with the guy, every other day trying to understand the rules of the dream world that he was creating, what the possibilities of what was in that world, and trying to really create, a character with a real emotional, backbone and a sort of this therapeutic journey that he needs to go through within these stages of the subconscious. So I needed that one-on-one time with him to have more clarity.
So one of the most interesting theories, in my opinion, is the theory that Inception is one grand metaphor for the process and effect of filmmaking, specifically Nolan's filmmaking. Some studies have gone viral since the release of this film that show human brain activity when their subjects were watching a movie, and a second set showed brain activity in subjects that were dreaming. Interestingly, these studies showed remarkably similar images, and Christopher Nolan himself has spoken about wanting the movie to feel like a dream, or the extension of one. And he's famously philosophical when it comes to the themes and storytelling of his films. This of course means that there are many Easter eggs to support this theory, including the names of the main characters spelling out dreams.
It all really started from just an interest in dreams and the relationship with films and portrayal of dreams in films. And what I felt I'd never seen was the portrayal of a dream that you could believe in its reality. That is to say, one of the key lines in the film is dreams feel real while we're in them. And so I wanted to make a film where the experience of dreaming was addressed in that real way. So even as something extraordinary is happening, you're invested in the reality of that world. Because movies, I think, are one of the great ways in which you can open up a world for the audience and really take them someplace, take their minds someplace they might not otherwise go.
And how could you forget the score by Hans Zimmer that not only kicks ass, but also is apparently based on old musical stylings that, you guessed it, were written about dreams. You can definitely find Easter egg breakdowns somewhere on the internet if you're looking for more of these little gems, but we gotta get a move on.
You just have to go deep enough.
You don't know that.
Now, to say that this movie is just a metaphor for filmmaking is simply an injustice. While I would agree that Nolan undoubtedly worked in the parallels between dreaming and watching and making a movie, but if that's all this movie is, then, well, I don't know, but that's not all this movie is. See, there's a widely believed theory out there that all of Nolan's films are in some way about how much he misses his family. Whether you subscribe to this idea or not, I think it ties in with the filmmaking metaphor. See, the character of Cobb is very similar to Nolan. He's a guy with an important job building dream worlds and letting his work take him to incredible places. All the while, he's plagued with the guilt of knowing that his work and his love for the non-reality of dreams took him away from the people he loved the most, his children.
When are you coming home, Dad?
Well, I can't, sweetheart, I can't.
Now, Christopher Nolan is a pretty mysterious guy. He doesn't give a lot of interviews about his personal life, and he's even gone on record saying, quote, I actually don't want people to have me in mind when they're watching the films. Well said, Christopher Nolan, yet here we are anyway. So to support this theory even further, Nolan and his wife, producer Emma Thomas, met in college in the 90s and have been together and worked together ever since. Nolan often hires members of his family to work on films with him, and this shows that he must enjoy having them around while he's working. He even had his son play Cobb's son in the movie. Coincidence? I don't know, you decide. All of this to say that the character of Cobb bears a striking resemblance in theme to Nolan as a filmmaker. When Cobb finally finds the right job that will allow him to retire and reunite with his estranged kids, the job is to implant an idea into someone's subconscious. In other words, Inception. Maybe this is Nolan's way of saying that when he feels that he's truly given his audience something from his work, he'll be able to enjoy his life with his kids before he forgets their faces. I think New Rockstars even put out a video that breaks down this theory into like what each individual character represents in the filmmaking process, and I mean, this theory goes deep.
It's not just about depth, you need the simplest version of the idea in order for it to grow naturally in your subject's mind.
Now, I don't want to spend too much time discussing theories that we've all heard about this movie before. After all, it's subjective anyway. But I've seen this movie many times and I've heard endless speculations. But when I decided to cover this movie for the show, I watched it back to back with another Nolan favorite of mine, The Prestige.
No. It's too simple. This is a complex illusion.
You only say that because you don't know the method.
The Prestige is very similar to Inception in a lot of ways, but I wonder if the true meaning of this movie can actually be found by zooming out and not looking so closely. I mean, if you've seen the film, you know that Nolan knows that we're gonna go back and look too closely and potentially miss the big picture.
Now, you're looking for the secret, but you won't find it because, of course, you're not really looking.
See, movies are not only like dreams, they're also like magic tricks. They're broken down into 3 acts that function the same way as a story. They're flashy for the audience, but sometimes disturbing and grueling behind the scenes. And modern audiences will often focus more on the method than the effect. The movie constantly reinforces the idea that the method is much simpler than you might think and not to overcomplicate it. Nolan even put a similar line in his movie Tenet when the protagonist is told not to try to understand it, but just to feel it. It seems like something that is extremely common in Nolan's work that nobody seems to be talking about. So, is it possible that Inception's true meaning is as simple as taking a step back and just looking at the piece as a whole instead of zooming in close and seeing the movie through too granular of a scope? Well, I don't know, but I tried doing that this time. And while I think there's plenty of evidence to support each theory floating around the internet, I don't have all day, and this is what I think. I think Inception is much simpler to boil down than we originally thought. Inception is Christopher Nolan's warning about the dangers, the risks, and the sacrifices that we make when we obsessively pursue our own dreams.
And I'm not about to just open my mind to someone like that.
Maybe by trying to fix everything we've done wrong in the past, we're really just trying to justify the reasons that we do what we love. When you like your job, or even when you're good at your job, you don't just do it because you have to, you also do it because deep down, you know that you want to. And sometimes that causes us to bury ourselves in what we consider work under the excuse that we're doing it to eventually make things better for the people we care about. See, while each individual theme and theory can be tied back to any number of blink and you'll miss it Easter eggs, the movie simply just takes a character who was so into his work and his dreams that he lost his wife and kids and even himself in order to pursue them. And then he spent his years doing everything he could to use his dream to make up for all the damage he'd caused. Maybe Nolan is trying to build a legacy that'll justify the time he spent making his art. Maybe he just wants to follow the dream until he reaches his own natural end of the road and decides to retire, or maybe he knows that no matter how much he loves and misses his family, he's always gonna be a dreamer with a story to tell, and maybe that's just his cross to bear.
There are alchemists who, for over 100 years, in various windowless rooms, basements, what have you, all across the world, have practiced a very special form of alchemy that is turning silver and plastic into dreams. And not just any kind of dreams, but the kind of dream that you can unspool from a reel and hold in your hand, hold up to the light, and see frozen magically. And these dreams can be run through a projector, thrown onto a screen where they will spark the imagination and emotion of audiences, as they have all across the world for so long, for so many generations of filmmakers.
In short, after multiple times watching this movie myself and thousands of individual theories that fans have presented over the years, I want to believe that taking Nolan's advice and just enjoying the show is what exists at the core of this movie. Too often, we look to extract deeper meaning from the movies we love because we simply just want to understand why we love them. But if there is one thing that I have finally accepted, it's that the simple truth of this movie is that we were always meant to give it our own meaning. The ending scene with Cobb's totems spinning is proof that Nolan isn't looking to directly answer our questions. There's theories that prove that he's dreaming, and there's theories that prove that it's reality, but the point is, we're not supposed to know. We're just supposed to be happy that he doesn't care. He's finally accepted that nothing will ever be the way it was, and he needs to just move on. And maybe that's what Inception is really about. Thank you for clicking on our video, everybody. If you like what you saw here, please make sure you like the video and subscribe and share with your friends who like this sort of content. JoBlo was created by movie fans for movie fans, and we appreciate your support.